She really has just changed the national narrative on criminal justice reform.
Known globally for her reality TV show, fashion brands, and social media game, Kim Kardashian's influence goes far beyond her Instagram page. Human rights attorney Jessica Jackson, Kardashian's attorney mentor, says the reality star turned aspiring attorney is now using her global platform to open the dialogue about prison reform.
She's incredible. I mean, just such a powerhouse. And, she's an entrepreneur, she's a mom, she's also a law student. She has prioritized this and especially recently has been kind of doubling down her efforts.
Jackson began Kardashian's attorney apprenticeship process in 2019. Just 1 year earlier, Kardashian lobbied then President Donald Trump to sign a bill for the First Step Act to assist with inmate job training, drug support, and lessened mandatory sentences. It passed with bipartisan support.
And, because of her, we were able to get sentencing reform attached to the First Step Act, which resulted in thousands of people coming home from federal prisons. And really, made this an issue that both Democrats and Republicans could get behind. So, not only was she showing it on her show and reaching an audience that probably never thought about this issue, but she was actually making real progress on the legislative front, meeting with legislators.
Jackson says Kardashian was inspired by the story of Alice Johnson, also known as Miss Alice, who was sentenced to life in prison in 1996 for her involvement in a cocaine trafficking organization. Kardashian advocated for Johnson's sentence to be commuted by President Trump in 2018.
And I'll never forget her saying, there must be thousands of Miss Alice's inside. I can't stop here. And so she, started visiting prisons, started visiting jails, started getting really involved. And I think the more involved she got, and this is true for anybody who comes to this issue, the more involved she got, the more she saw, and the more she understood how unjust our justice system really is.
Kardashian, who passed the so-called baby bar exam in 2021, continues to study under Jackson while her journey as an aspiring attorney continues. But because she does not have an undergraduate degree, Kardashian must take an unconventional route to become an attorney. California is just one of 7 states that allows the apprenticeship program, where hopeful attorneys can study under a mentor for 4 years by setting aside a designated amount of time each week for the program. The aspiring attorney must then pass the first-year law student's examination and eventually the bar exam.
Now, I will tell you that is a much, much harder path because you're essentially not just working on cases the whole time, but you don't have professors. You're having to learn all of the legal doctrine yourself. You're having to be self-motivated to crack open these old, law books and learn all of the cases. You're having to figure it out. It's very, very difficult.
While Kardashian's legal journey began only 3 years ago, Jackson's story began in 2004 when she was just 22 years old. At the time, her husband was arrested and sentenced to 15 years in prison.
He had made a mistake. He had a drug problem. But that prison wasn't going to be the place for him and it wasn't going to help him get better. I wanted to change the system so that nobody would be in the same position we were. No other family was going to have to go through being ripped apart and financially devastated and all of the pain and emotions that go with having a loved one incarcerated.
Jackson, now the COO of Reform Alliance, says the United States spends $186 billion taxpayer dollars annually into the prison system. She says 68% of the time, inmates recidivate or end up back in prison after their release.
We have a system that just incarcerates people and doesn't actually address any of the underlying reasons why they committed a crime. So a lot of crime is fueled by substance abuse or by lack of economic opportunities or by mental illness. And we need to address those things. We can't just put somebody in a cell and hope that they magically get better and then make it hard for them when they re-enter.
Jackson's plan for reform includes 3 main points: understanding the underlying reason for why a crime is committed, treatment of people inside of jail or prison, and loosening the restrictions on parole violations.
Probation and parole are actually drivers of mass incarceration. People might not know this, but about 40% of our prisons and jails are full of people who have committed technical or supervision violations. A technical violation is not a new crime. In fact, it is just a violation of a condition. And most of these conditions that are put on people who are on supervision are things I couldn't even adhere to, right? Like you can't be late to a meeting with your probation officer. Do you know how many meetings I'm late to? I was late to the Zoom, to be honest. But that certainly shouldn't mean that I go to jail.
Over the last 3 years, Jackson's team has passed 16 bills in 10 different states, creating a pathway for 650,000 people to get off probation or parole.
We've got 50 years of data saying that tough on crime does not work. And we've got, years of data from the states showing that smart safety solutions do work. Actually, addressing the underlying reason why people commit crime does work, and it does get people back on their feet and contributing to society, and it makes all of us safer.
As 2022 comes to a close, Jackson says her team is already focusing on new legislation come 2023.
There's just so much genius behind the bars, and the fact that we just lock people up and discount them because of it, and then lock them out of society when they come home, and make it hard to find jobs and housing and all of that. It's just heartbreaking.
Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.